Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host Anthony Sassano and today is the 10th of March 2022. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So Gitcoin Grants R13 is now live. As I mentioned the other day, it was going live today. So I know a lot of you have already donated to both the Daily Gwei and other grants out there, so thank you so much for doing that. But yeah, as I said, I guess like a few days ago, it is now time to donate to your favorite projects out there. There are a bunch of new projects on there right now. And get your donations matched. Obviously, the Daily Gwei is on there, and so is ETHUB. I thank you so much for your support there. Don't feel obligated to donate. It's just there for people who want to donate. I always appreciate it, but it is definitely not needed. I'd much rather prefer you donate to the multitude of other projects that are out there on Gitcoin. And as I mentioned last week, there's over $1 million worth of matching funds up for grabs. I think a couple $1 million at this stage, which is really awesome to see. So just a reminder there for you guys to go check it out. But there are plenty of other stuff to get through today, so I'm going to move on from that. There is a bunch of merge updates. So it's time to get started testing the merge going again, as Marius from the Go Ethereum team says here. He says, we spun up the Kiln testnet to test Ethereum's upcoming move to proof of stake. This should be the final testnet before we start merging Ropsten, Rinkeby, and Gurley, which is obviously the testnets that are the main testnets that part of the Ethereum network. And this thread that Marius has put together explains how you can get involved. So I'm not going to go through the thread. I'll link it in the YouTube description. But the reason why you would want to get involved is what Tim Beiko is saying here. The amount of data that they gather on Kiln can directly influence how soon that we are ready for the actual merge, right? The mainnet merge. This is the time for application tooling, infrastructure providers, and developers to test things. If there are bugs, now is where we want to find them. And Tim was quote tweeting Superphiz, who said, "Let me say this as plainly as possible. Kiln is the big milestone for the Ethereum merge. I urge you once again to participate in this testnet, and I look forward to delivering a POAP to every participant. It's showtime, friends." And as I said, Marius's thread here goes through how you can participate, and there's also, I guess, a link to everything from Parithosh here, so you can find the configs at kiln.themerge.dev, and this will allow you to get started kind of running the software to test the merge. So if you're so inclined, definitely do this because we need all the testing we can get. As Tim Beiko mentioned, if there are bugs, we want to find them now because, I mean, as I've mentioned plenty of times, if there are no bugs found, if everything seems to be going well and nothing breaks and everything kind of like merges correctly and continues on correctly, then what's up after that, as kind of like Marius said here, is merging Ropsten, Rinkeby, and Gurley and all that sort of stuff. And then after that is a main net. So we are so close, guys. Oh my god. I feel like not enough people are talking about this. Like, it's just crazy how a few months ago everyone was talking about it and now it's kind of quiet. But I think that's because a lot of people have left the ecosystem at this stage. Obviously, the price of ETH and just general crypto is not too hot right now. It's, the funny thing is the market is doing exactly what it did in 2019. It's such a weird feeling to see it again, where it pumps and then everyone's like, oh, is this it? Is this it? Are we going back into a bull market? And then it dumps down again. And I remember explaining to a friend when we were in the bull market, I said to him, and it's because it was his first cycle, he didn't realize what it would be like. I said, look, it's not going to be like this forever. The bull markets come and go. And the worst is when we kind of like go into what's called a crab market or a sideways market where every pump gets sold down and, it kind of like really mentally drains on you, especially if you're watching the charts all the time. So obviously that is scaring away a lot of people. People aren't interested anymore, but that's fine. For those of us who are interested, there's just so much going on with the merge. It's just crazy. Like, it's crazy that we're so close. I mean, we're in March, guys. This could be happening in June, like April, May, June. It's 3 months away. 3-4 months away, even if it happens in July. It's so close, and it's going to happen before we know it at this stage. So very, very much looking forward to that, of course. But as I said, if you want to get involved, now is the time to do so. Do not dawdle, do not wait. This is your time to get involved. This is your time to help out on kind of like the testing side of things. And as Superphiz said, you will get a POAP out of it as well. So if you're into collecting POAPs, which all of you should be, of course, then this is the best way to kind of like get one of the rarest ones, because obviously a POAP for testing the merge testnet is only going to come around once, right? So definitely get involved there. I'll leave all these links in the YouTube description and you can go check it out. Oh, actually, one more thing about the merge, sorry, before I move on, is that the Beacon Chain Genesis will be Friday at 1400 UTC. The Power Chain has already started, or the Proof of Work Chain has already started, and the core devs expect the Proof of Work phase to last at least a week. So you can deploy your smart contracts now to know how they behave pre and post merge. So if you're a developer, deploy it to the Kiln testnet, and then once it merges, you'll be able to see them on both sides of the merge, which is very, very cool to see. And finally, around the merge, Sigma Prime, the developers of Lighthouse, have put together a update number 40, which goes through the remaining work for a Lighthouse to do before the merge. So if you're interested in more merge-related stuff, definitely give this a read. This is coming from a client developer's perspective, which is always a really, really awesome read. All right, so I have a bunch of Rocketpool things to get through today. It's 4 different tweets from Rocketpool. So this first one comes from jcrt, who tweeted out, a question came up during the Twitter spaces about Rocketpool's client diversity. Here's a snapshot of the current distribution per mini pool. Validator, thanks to 0xInvis for the Discord bot that generates these charts on demand. It's nice to see ETH Nimbus getting more love. Now, as I mentioned before, Rocketpool is really, really great on the client diversity side. They care about client diversity more than any other staking service or staking pool out there by far, really. I mean, look at this kind of like distribution here. Lighthouse is at 45%, Teku is at 25%, Nimbus at 17%, Prism at 7%, at 0.7% unknown, and 4% haven't had a proposal yet, so it's obviously can't kind of track those yet. But this is crazy. I mean, Prism is in the minority here, guys. Like, whereas Prism is the super majority right now on the kind of like Beacon Chain mainnet. So this is really awesome to see. This means that Rocketpool kind of like validators have made the conscious decision to not use the super majority client, or at least most of them have, and to use the other clients. And it's really great, as JCRTP here said, it's great to see Nimbus and even Teku getting love, because they are, the minority clients at the end of the day. Like, Lighthouse and Prism are the leaders right now, I believe, and Nimbus and Teku are behind. But this is just kind of like all flipped on its head. We have Lighthouse at number 1, Teku number 2, Nimbus number 3, and Prism number 4. So very, very cool to see this this kind of like client distribution going on here on the Rocketpool side of things. And I think, we'll see. We can revisit this, in 6 months, 12 months, see how this distribution kind of fares. But I'm really glad that they're kind of like the supermajority client, Prism, is actually the lowest here on Rocketpool. Now, could another client become a supermajority over time? Of course it can. Of course it can. And that's why client diversity is not just like a one and done sort of thing. It is an ongoing thing. It requires a community to keep calling it out, to keep the Beacon Chain healthy, and to make sure that we're not just kind of like, replacing supermajority client being Prism right now with a different client and still having a supermajority. And for those of you who don't know, a supermajority client is defined as a client that has more than 66% of the total validator share. Now, the reason why this is bad is because that's over 2/3 of the validator share, and if there was something that was to go wrong, if there was a bug or anything like that, then people could stand to lose a lot of money, and it would require social coordination to reverse or to kind of like change, and it's just very, very messy. So we want to see, each client having no more than 50% ideally, definitely less than 66%, but 50% or less is probably the sweet spot there. So I haven't seen any updates on the mainnet distribution yet. I'm sure there's going to be updates out there soon, but Rocketpool is absolutely killing the game here with the amount of kind of, I guess, people that they have going with the other clients and not Prism. Not to say that Prism is a bad client as usual, but of course we want to see more client diversity there. All right, the second update out of Rocketpool is this pool that I've been talking about for quite a while on the Refuel, the RETH WST curve pool that allows you to basically stack your ETH staking yield with other yields such as token rewards. So you can see here that Jasper, the friendly ghost, who's been a big proponent for this pool, has basically put out a screenshot today showing the yield that you can currently get in this pool. So the min APY is 26%, the max APY is 65%, and currently Jasper's APY at time of screenshot was 26%. That is a huge amount. This is an ETH yield, guys. Absolutely crazy. Obviously, that's probably not going to sustain because this is early days for this pool. It's definitely, you've got a bit of added risk to it, and there's not that much kind of like liquidity in it just yet, compared to the fact that there will be more liquidity in the future. But still, if you're interested in taking this risk and you want to stake your ETH and you want to kind of get more, I guess, like rewards on your ETH, 26% ETH denominated returns, can't go wrong with that. I mean, that's just crazy, right? Like, I mean, vanilla ETH staking gives you like 4 or 5% right now, and post merge you'll probably be around 10% or something like that. So this is just kind of like quadruple, 5 times the current normal vanilla staking yields, and then over double the post merge staking yields here. So it really I guess cool to see this. And this is this was the topic of today's newsletter, where I spoke about a concept called yield burger that I don't know, I don't think I came up with it. I heard someone else kind of like say it a while ago, but it's basically this concept of layering on top kind of like token rewards or liquidity mining rewards on top of each other to create like a really high yield. Now, this was done obviously in DeFi summer. This became quite lucrative. It was obviously very risky, but the APYs went up really high when you did this, and people kind of made a lot of money if they were in earlier in these things, if they put a lot of money into it. And they're still alive and well. It's still happening in the ecosystem today, but it's being done in a, I guess, less risky way, in a more kind of like sustainable way. Because back then in DeFi summer, basically what you would do is you'd basically just throw an amount of money into an unaudited random fork of some other project that was probably unaudited, and it was just kind of like really risky. Yes, you could make a lot of money, but the risk was super, super high. So obviously throwing your RETH or WSTETH or both into a Curve pool is much safer, because Curve is been around for a while. It's been audited. It's safe. It's all well and good. Relatively safe. Like nothing's foolproof, but relatively safe there. And you're getting like a very, very nice yield on this at the moment. So if you're interested in that, you can definitely go check that out. I think that's really, really cool. And obviously earning a ETH yield, you can never go wrong with that, right? All right, there's two more Rocketpool updates to get through. So this one is about their new staking UI. So you can go to stake.rocketpool.net. There's a new interface with a bunch of improvements, such as a wallet panel, transaction estimates, more intuitive RETH exchange rate and help, and much more. So you can check it out at the URL that I just mentioned, stake.rocketpool.net. Maybe I can load it up here for you guys. Hopefully it'll load. Yeah, there we go. It's loaded for me there. So yeah, this is nice. Very orange, right? it's kind of like turned my whole face. I have face orange here, but yeah, this basically just allows you to stake ETH and receive RETH, and it tells you your kind of like average return, which is 4.33%, which is obviously the vanilla staking yield right now. It's got some transaction details here as well. This is very similar to obviously just a normal swap interface like Uniswap and things like that, which I've said to you guys, this is what we want to see. We don't want to see all the fancy complicated stuff. We just want to see stuff that people are used to, especially if we're trying to get people more involved with ETH staking. Obviously, one of Rocketpool's goals here is to make it as easy as possible for anyone to stake their ETH and any amount of ETH. So very, very cool to see this new interface from them. So definitely go check that one out. And finally, Rocketpool shared a chart today with the caption, "This is what a decentralized staking pool looks like." Now you can see here that validators per node is quite decentralized and quite distributed. So I guess my camera is cutting off the left-hand side of this chart here. But basically, there is one validator per kind of like node, and there's about 475 of them, and then it tapers off greatly. Now, the explanation here is that as I've mentioned before, there are two parts to staking on Ethereum. There are two pieces of software that everyone runs, or three if you count an ETH1 node, but like two on the ETH2 side or the consensus layer side, is a beacon node and a validator. Now, one beacon node can be home to many validator clients. So if you have 10 validators, you can make them all talk to your one beacon node, and that's fine. But the thing is, the beacon node is the full node. That is what holds kind of like the chain. That is what kind of keeps up to the head with the chain and validates the chain. It's kind of like an ETH1 full node. So we want as much of them online as possible. There's currently, I think, 4,000 or 5,000 of them online. Obviously, a lot of people won't spin up extra beacon nodes if they don't have to, because they're kind of like heavy on the storage space and things like that. So they'll just point their validators to the beacon nodes here. But Rocketpool seems to be different here. Just like on the client diversity front, they seem to be doing very, very nicely here with the validators per node and the amount of nodes they have in their network. So very much love to see this. And also, I think this is, I'm not totally sure if this is showing the beacon nodes or the Rocketpool nodes. I'm going to assume it's showing the Rocketpool nodes. Someone's going to correct me on this. Maybe I'll scroll through the comments, but yeah, I think regardless of that, I think having more nodes in the network, having more of the and per validator is very healthy in general, both on the Rocketpool and the Ethereum side of things. So very, very cool to see this from Rocketpool. All right, so Daren Lau here from not 3 Lau Capital has shared a, I guess, article from calcalistech.com that is covering Starkware's new fundraising round. So apparently they're raising more money. This would be their Series D round, and they're set to value them at a $6 billion valuation, and they're set to raise another $100 million. This is massive and not unsurprising considering the fact that Immutable just raised at a $2.5 billion valuation, I believe, and Immutable uses Starkware's tech. And obviously Starkware is a big name within the Ethereum space, within the scaling space and the layer 2 space. They've been doing a lot of great work for many years now. And, I feel like investors just want to throw money at them. Now, there's no details about which investors are going to be kind of like in this round. It's still very early days from what the article seems to state. This information came from someone who works at Starkware. But I mean, this isn't surprising to me at all. As I said, guys, like there are so many big investors out there that are throwing money at this stuff. I spoke about this yesterday at the end of yesterday's episode, where I basically said that there are billion-dollar funds out there. They need to allocate. They want to allocate to the best things that they can allocate to, and there is probably nothing better than layer 2 teams right now, or scalability teams in general, to allocate to, because they are all obviously extremely needed for the ecosystem, and they already have product market fit in my mind. Like everyone knows that block space in general has product market fit, and what these layer 2s is just give us more block space. Obviously, it's a very simplified version of it, but that is the thesis at the end of the day. So very, very cool to see this. I have brought up in the past before about how I took a bit of an issue with how Starkware was conducting their fundraisers, because they allowed certain parties into the round, such as Alameda Research and Three Arrows Capital, who have been critical of Ethereum in the past, especially Three Arrows Capital out there, and been critical of Ethereum's kind of like scaling journey. So I'm not sure why they allowed those investors into their rounds. I'm curious to see who is in this round, who leads this round. It may not be crypto native investors, because at this level of kind of, I guess, at this late of stage of fundraising, a series kind of like D round, it's usually these kind of like more traditional firms that come in at this stage, just like we saw with the Immutable X raise. So I'm curious to see who is both leading this and participating in it. But yeah, I guess like I'm going to have to keep an eye out for more information on this, and we'll see how this evolves over the coming months. All right, an update from zkSync today. So the zkSync 2.0 portal has been upgraded. You can now pay network fees in any token, not just ETH. Block Explorer added, and multiple UX improvements. You can request tokens from the faucet to try it out here at portal.zkSync.io/bridge/faucet. So I spoke about this, I don't know if it was this week or last week, about this concept of paying network fees in any token. And I said, I mentioned how like I thought it was a good thing. I thought that we had to abstract away as much complexity as possible. But the ultimate settlement currency is always going to be ETH, because zkSync needs to pay Ethereum to settle on Ethereum. And Ethereum only accepts ETH for fees because of EIP 1559, including that base fee there. So some people like to spin this as a bearish thing. They're like, oh, if you don't need to use ETH for fees, then what's the point of ETH? And I explained last time how there's so many more use cases for ETH, and it's just totally bizarre to me that people would say that. But yeah, I'm not going to rehash all of that, but just wanted to kind of, I guess, highlight that in the context of this. They've also added a Block Explorer, which is very needed, of course. We can't have a layer 2 network without a Block Explorer, and multiple UX improvements. Now, you have to connect your wallet here to see all this. I'm not going to connect my wallet for now, but you can go test this. And this is on testnet, by the way. This is not mainnet. This is on the girly testnet. So you're going to need testnet ETH and tokens, not mainnet ETH and tokens. And you can get them from the various faucets. One here, and then there's another one that you can go to, which is linked in the Twitter thread as well. But very, very cool to see this. I think, all these layer 2s are really ramping up their development process, really ramping up their releases. They're all in cutthroat competition with each other, especially the ZK teams. It seems like everyone's building a ZK AVM right now, and they're all kind of like fighting each other over it and being like, my ZK AVM is better. No, mine's better. I'm going to bring my testnet out now, and then I'm going to bring my mainnet out before you, and we're going to have all the apps on here, blah, blah, blah. Look, guys, at this stage of the rollout, I have no idea who's going to win this race. And by win, I mean become the dominant player. I have absolutely no idea what users are going to prefer to use. I feel like the tech underneath is going to feel very similar. It's going to be instant transactions, cheap transactions. And really, at the end of the day, the winners and losers and dominant players are going to be decided by marketing and business development, just like anything. It's going to be decided on how much outreach these ecosystems do, how much money they throw at people to build on them, how much of a community they formulate. The same stuff we always want to see of these kind of like networks. Obviously, the stuff that we see in Ethereum and is a big reason why Ethereum has succeeded. But at this point in time, it's anyone's game. There's no dominant player yet, I don't think. Yes, there are teams that are further along in their roadmap than others, but none of the ZK VMs are on mainnet. The optimistic rollups that are on mainnet are just kind of like getting to the point where they're basically reaching Ethereum mainnet parity in terms of like the main apps, and obviously haven't reached user parity yet. And it being a bear market, there's not that many users around right now, so it really is anyone's game at this stage. And that's why the competition is so fierce, because winning this game is a $1 trillion opportunity. It's not $1 billion, not 10 billion, not 100 billion. It is a $1 trillion opportunity, as I've explained before. A layer 2 network and a layer 1 network that has the most usage on it when, takes over the world, essentially everyone's using it, that's a $1 trillion opportunity. So, of course, the competition is going to be cutthroat. Of course, every single one of these teams wants to win, wants to be the dominant player, wants to be part of that 80%. In the kind of like Pareto distribution there. And as I said, it's anyone's game. I don't think anyone can kind of predict who's going to win now, but we're going to have to see how that plays out. And it's going to be a game that plays out over many years. It's not going to be decided this year or next year or the year after. I think it is still a 5 to 10 year game. And we may see, start seeing kind of like winners and losers shake out in a couple of years. But even then, I don't know. I feel like that would be still too early to tell, and we'll have to see how it plays out. And not to write off the optimistic roll-up teams either. They're doing a lot of great work. And as I've said before, they're going to get the sub 10-cent transaction fees eventually too. So they're going to live side by side. It's all going to come down to marketing, business development. Integrations as well is a big part of it too. And what users prefer to use at the end of the day, and what developers prefer to develop on. Those are the main factors at the end of the day when it comes to these layer 2 networks. All right, speaking of layer 2s, last update here out of Optimism. So they introduced their Kiln technology today, which is their next-gen fault-proof architecture, and it is coming soon. It enables optimal data costs, it effortlessly preserves EVM equivalents, and its very first bug bounty goes live today. So you can check out the blog post for more information on this and how it all works. It's very technical, of course, but if you want to read it, you can. Very cool to see this. Optimism seems to be making all the right moves lately after their false kind of like start last year. I was talking to someone today and I was saying, it's funny how like the last year in the L2 space has been, a year ago in March, Optimism was supposed to launch and they ended up delaying. And then, they launched kind of like soft launch in like July, and then they kind of like removed their whitelist a few months after that. And obviously Arbitrum beat them to the punch with a mainnet launch without the whitelist. But it's all coming together now, I think, for both of the main optimistic rollup networks, Optimism and Arbitrum. They both have busting ecosystems. Their tech is getting better all the time. They're lowering the fees. Can't go wrong here. But if you want to learn more about Optimism's Kiln technology, definitely give this blog post a read. All right, actually, there's one more layer 2 thing, and this is more of a broad discussion. I put out a tweet today where I said, every single Ethereum user should be taking advantage of these low gas prices to bridge some assets into layer 2. Don't wait until gas is at 100 plus Gwei again to do it. So if Gwei is under 20, I'm pretty sure bridging into these things costs less than $10 right now. Obviously, this is not super cheap. It is still $10, in fees. But bridging in, really, at the end of the day, you only have to do it once. To Optimism and to Arbitrum. The other ones maybe more than once, but I'll explain why only once to Optimism and Arbitrum. Bridge in ETH. You have ETH for fees. If you want other tokens, you can just sell or buy other tokens. You can just sell ETH for other tokens on these networks. Now, obviously, they're not going to have every token out there. They're going to have the major tokens, and then you can use your ETH in all the different apps out there. You can buy NFTs with it on there. You can participate in the money markets, whatever. So that $10-ish fee at 20 Gwei. I mean, I know Gwei's 40 right now, but at 20 Gwei is okay. It's okay to eat, I think. If people have a few $1,000s to play with, then $10 is just the cost of doing business. If you've only got $100 to play with, then totally $10 is going to eat into your money there. And even bridging in from a centralized exchange is still around $10-15 anyway, so that's not going to help you. I think the cheapest way to get into a layer 2 in kind of like that place would be to essentially, what you would do is you'd go through something like crypto.com, I think, or one of these kind of like direct fiat on ramps onto the layer 2. They're going to charge you a probably 2 to 3% rate or something like that, but that's less than the $10 charge. So if it depends on like the amount, right? If you're only paying with $100, then it's worth it because you're only paying $2 to $3 then. But if you're playing with like $1,000, well, that's $20, $30. That's more than the fee it would cost you to go in from layer 1. It doesn't make sense for you to go and use one of these services. So the reason why Ethereum gas fees aren't based on percentages of the value is because the Ethereum network doesn't care about the value of the token or the value of the NFT that you're moving. All it cares about is the gas cost, and the gas cost is obviously dictated by the different opcodes and the different kind of like code that's being run in the background and how much computation it takes up. So it doesn't matter if you're moving $1 million of ETH or $10 of ETH, it's going to cost the same amount or around the same amount, as sort of thing, very, very close to each other there. So yeah, anyway, and what I wanted to kind of like talk about as well, as I've got a few minutes left here about kind of like getting on to layer 2s now, is because you think kind of like 100 Gwei, hasn't been around for a couple months now. You think to yourself, I've got time. You don't, guys. Like, Gwei can go up really, really quickly depending on market conditions. It can change rapidly. Like, I was actually just looking at this a couple of hours ago. Gwei was 20. Now it's 45. I don't know why it's 45. I mean, you can go to ultrasound.money and see if there's some NFT mint happening, but I doubt it. Now it's gone up to 49. This can change so rapidly, and we could be back to 100 plus Gwei gas prices before you know it. So don't wait. When you see Gwei at like 20 or below, golden level. Like, yes, it can probably go lower than that. Maybe it can go to sub 10 if the market really dies. But really, at the end of the day, 20 Gwei around that is the best it's probably some of the best Gwei prices you're going to get, or gas prices you're going to get. Take advantage of it. Don't wait, don't dawdle, do it now, because if gas, if Gwei's at $100, bridging into these 100 Gwei, bridging into these L2s is going to cost you like $50 at least, or something like that, right? And that's obviously getting into kind of like the ridiculous territory there. But as I said, as we get more of these centralized exchange bridges online, more of these kind of like direct fiat on ramps that kind of like allow you to do things with cheaper fees, it's going to be much better for the end user there. And as I said, I think, Arbitrum, Optimism, obviously the Polygon POS chain is in a layer 2, but you can bridge into that. They're probably the 3 main ones that I would bridge into right now, just because they have the most things to do on there. Obviously, other things are live, such as kind of like Zigzag Exchange on zkSync, but that's really all you can do on zkSync, and donate on Gitcoin. There's not that much right now. Starknet obviously is in very early alpha stages, not much to do on there. There's some other like the Optimism forks and stuff. There are some things to do there, but if you want the best bang for your buck right now, I would bridge into Arbitrum or Optimism and the Polygon POS chain. In terms of like how much activity or how much stuff each chain has to do, from my reading, it would go the Polygon POS chain, which obviously isn't a layer 2, but still there, Arbitrum, and then Optimism. But I think Arbitrum and Optimism are getting pretty close to each other at this point in time. But the Polygon POS chain is definitely like very far ahead, because they've had longer to kind of, I guess, develop their ecosystem out, but that's the kind of like order I would go with. So get onto these L2s today, guys. Don't wait, don't dawdle, and you get to experience fast transactions with cheap fees. Who doesn't love that, right? But on that note, I think that's going to be it for today. So thank you everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.